So I think we'll get started here. Welcome to today's session entitled Clients in the Classroom. My name is Susan Malcolm, and with me today are 5 students who collectively worked on 4 separate client projects during the fall of 2015 in the Honors Argument and Research course. So before I let them tell their stories and I tell you a little bit about their experiences, I wanted to just give you some context so that you had a better understanding of how these projects fit within the context of the Argument and Research class. Argument and Research is a required course for all students, and in that Argument and Research course, there are communication skills program requirements in terms of what students have to complete. So that way when students graduate, we can say to all employers, prospective employers, the students know how to do these things. So in addition to the traditional assignments that are incorporated in that Argument and Research class, these students had worked with clients in the local Moon Township area so that they could actually practice what they learned during the first half of the course. So just to give you a few ideas in terms of what that course is designed to do, it's designed for freshmen essentially, freshmen or sophomores, so that those students are able to accurately identify what is credible research, when do we use these things, what kind of solicitation tools do I use in terms of interviews or meetings, what do I do to try to prepare to gather research, to identify appropriate topics, to identify appropriate areas of controversy. What do I have to do prior to actually putting my thoughts down on paper? And so the students spent about 6 weeks learning the fundamentals of argument and research before they were asked to apply those tools in an actual client setting. And one note about the clients in particular, the students will each tell you about their own client, but in general, in terms of identifying clients and people outside the university or even departments here, the key is to make sure to manage those expectations of all parties involved. So when trying to identify a client for students to work with, it's really important that those clients understand these students are just starting out in their college careers. This is what they're supposed to be learning. These are the kinds of things that we can do for you and for your business, and these are things that we won't do. So part of that comes from where the faculty, the faculty involvement in those projects. They need to set those parameters at the very beginning. And likewise, one other thing, the expectations need to be set so that, if I would have arrived in the fall 2015 Honors Argument and Research class and thought that the students were not able to perform and to work with the clients, we wouldn't have done the client work. So from the very beginning, the client understands that I need to meet the students first, and based on the discussions with the students and based on their degree of adventure, their desire for adventure and trying new things, based on that as well as their abilities and their majors, et cetera, that's how we decide whether to move forward. So there's a little bit of flux at the beginning of the semester, but then we were able to move forward because we had students I felt were capable of meeting the tasks at hand. So I'll let you hear directly from them. Jess Friss is the first person who will speak. She'll talk about the Embers, a meeting place.
So hello, my name is Jessica Friss. I'm an environmental science major here at Robert Morse University, and I was chosen to work with the client, the Embers. Now, the Embers is an intimate meeting space owned by Pat and Irene Trello. It's located at the headquarters for their other company, Trello's Chocolate. The location has much to offer in space, amenity, and location-wise. It's fairly new, and in fact, it only had its opening day just a few days before we met them. The project started with 4 sheets of paper and 4 companies. On the paper, the Embers offered a couple sentences about the basis of what the local meeting space would be. It was hard to get a grasp of what the Embers was due to their limited online information. They had a blog and a Facebook, but that was about it. And their blog and Facebook both had information about Trello's Chocolate and the Embers. In order to prepare for our initial meeting, my group came up with a list of questions that we wanted to ask Pat Trello. Since we were unsure of what the Embers wanted from us, we prepared many questions that could be asked depending on what Pat Trello told us. We were prepared for the meeting to go anyway, and we also did a mock question and answer interview session just to make sure we were prepared. So what happened at the initial meeting? We met on site at Trello's Chocolate with both the Embers group and the Trello's Chocolate. We only had 1 hour to meet, which was difficult because we had to split our 1 hour with Trello's and the Ember, meaning we only had about 30 minutes to ask the questions that we wanted to ask. During the meeting, we were able to ask our questions and learn more about the Embers and the hopes that Pat Trello had for the Embers. By the time we had left, we had figured out the 4 major points to focus on in our research: local interest, catering, advertising, and social media. After the meeting, we started looking at at the 4 main points that we were focusing on. To look at local interest, we, along with help from Trello's Chocolate, generated a list of local companies to call and ask about their willingness to use a place, such as the Embers. This list ended up being well over 250 people that needed to be called in just a few weeks. The general speech was created to talk about the local business and so that we came out sounding professional in uniform. After finding out who was interested in coming to the Embers, we then sent out a letter to a mailing list that we generated. After doing that, we then focused on catering. The Embers offers a catering service already, but we were interested in local companies that would be interested in catering for them. And we saw that it was important to Pat Trello to use the local community. We ended up finding some places that offer catering and generated a list of what type of food they catered and how to contact them. The third thing we focused on was advertising. We contacted Lamar Advertising, a local company that is very big around this area. We wanted to know the best way to get our information out there and the price of the different types of advertisement. The very last section we focused on was social media and the website. We wanted to create a website that showcased what the Embers had to offer and also allowed people to get more information quicker. I wanted to focus on how important it was to have a solid website that proved the benefits of going to the Embers, using the space, and I wanted to tell them how important it was to have a website and social media. Overall, our initial research started off without knowing which direction we were headed, but after the meeting, we were able to get started on research and had our own section to work on. I will now turn the program over to Dan Doyle to talk about Trello's Chocolate, which is also owned by Pat and Irene Trello.
So hi, I'm Daniel Doyle. I'm an actuarial science major, and I was working on the Trello Chocolate Company. And Trello Chocolate it's again owned by Pat and Irene Trello, and one of their main accomplishments is they ship chocolate all over the world, and they are the formal chocolate sponsor for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they mention that quite often when we interview them. So initially going into the meeting, we got a general overview of their company, kind of just looking at it as consumers would look at it. And the 3 things that we noticed was that we noticed their brochure, their website, and their social media were all lacking. Their brochure was expensive to make, and we felt that it could be a little bit more appealing visually. Their website, as you can see, it looks, in comparison to most chocolate websites, it's a bit bland. It's just telling you what's there. It's not really giving you much context. And their social media presence, as Jess mentioned earlier, it was confusing because both Trello Chocolato and the Embers were on the same sites. They would also put things about Lords International and other business ventures that they have on there. So we wanted to streamline that if we could. After our initial meeting with Pat and Irene, we also needed to make a list of businesses. The list of businesses for Trello was a bit different than the list for Embers, because the criteria for this list, for our list, was size, because the important thing about a chocolate company is bulk orders, not proximity. So proximity was an issue with the meeting place, because proximity will determine whether the company wants to use that meeting place for certain events. But again, size is more important for bulk orders. I was the one who was in charge of the list, and that required a lot more hands-on research than I was used to, and it was a bit more unconventional than simply looking up articles like most research papers and then incorporating that. It was more brute force, just looking for phone numbers at business parks, finding what businesses fit the criteria that we were looking for, and then assembling that into a cohesive list. Another research opportunity that we had was creating a website. This is the About Us page from the website that one of my team members, ZU, created. And as you can see, it's a little bit, the picture is it's much friendlier than the About Us page earlier. It's more inviting. It looks more like what other chocolate companies used for their websites. And that was another opportunity that we had. We had the opportunity to look at the market, see what everybody else was doing, and try and make sure that Trello was up to speed in terms of that. And now, I will turn it over to the man with the legend, Clint Speer.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, everyone. My name is Clint Speer, and I'm also a freshman actuarial science major here at Robert Morris University. I was a part of the KIPS group for the project in our honors argument and research class. KIPS is a local ice cream shop that allowed us to analyze its business and research ideas to improve its operations. A big part of this project was working with my team members, including Paul. Working with honors kids brought group projects to a new light for me. Every member of the KIPS team was definitely that kid in high school that carried the group projects, including myself. So each one of us at the onset of the project was very motivated to get a good grade. However, at the end of the project, we were all motivated to help KIPS, not just acquire good grades for ourselves. After picking which project we would be working on, we went to do an in-person interview with the owner of KIPS. I was originally very intimidated by the owner because she said that whatever suggestions we would make to her, she's probably implemented 3 times and they failed. So I was hopeful, however, because every time she has implemented a new plan, she has given it several months to allow it to manifest itself. So my overall impression after this interview was that I need to have high quality research to establish my ethos if I want her to listen to any of my suggestions. I was also a firm believer that she had a strong product. If any of you were fortunate enough to ever eat KIPS ice cream, it's phenomenal. The one problem that she revealed to us that she was having was getting through the winter with sales. So I originally didn't know what route to take for my contribution to this project, but I settled on market analysis. I first used Apple Maps to locate every store that specialized in selling frozen yogurt or ice cream within a 3-mile radius of Robert Morris University. Then I used online ratings, proximity, operation hours, and product to evaluate KIPS' main competitors. After collecting as much competitor data as I could by searching the internet and making calls to other locations, I began to do market research. It was natural for me to assume that she could target the market. She could target her marketing towards college students because of the 4,000 students here at Robert Morris University just down the road from her. I knew she would dismiss my logic, though, if it was simply my opinion, so I began to research. I found that the National Association of College Stores reports that 38% of college students in America admit to have eaten ice cream or a frozen treat within the past 7 days. This makes ice cream the 6th most ready-to-consume snack food by college students. A Harvard area ice cream shop employee, Baha Florio, who works at JP Lakes and Ice Cream Shop on Harvard campus, said that people still order ice cream even when it's 10 degrees below zero outside. I also assisted in analyzing the results of a survey conducted by one of my group members. Almost 3/4 of the students that participated in the survey here at RMU said that they're willing to travel 10 minutes off campus for high quality ice cream. Topping Town, as you can see here on the graph, this is how we presented our findings in this survey to the owner of KIPS. Topping Town gathered 27% of the votes from RMU students, while KIPS only pulled in 17% of the votes during our recent campus survey. One trend among college students also is that they want to eat their ice cream late at night, right before they go to bed. So it may be beneficial for KIPS to consider later hours within its winter operation. After gathering all this data, I still wanted to do something more to show the owner of KIPS that I had enough evidence to back my claims. On Monday, November 3rd, 2015, between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m., I sat outside of Romo's and watched 25 pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream be purchased at the Robert Morris Eatery. The pints of ice cream were sold at $5.70, and out of all the Ben & Jerry consumers, 80% said that their ice cream consumption schedules would not change during the winter months. In fact, 12% even said that they would probably eat more ice cream in the winter. Those are all the methods that I use to gather data for this project, and I will discuss my overall findings later in this discussion. But right now, I'll pass it off to my partner and teammate, Paul.
Thank you, Clint. Hello everyone, my name is Paul Brennan Schink, and I am a freshman mechanical engineering student here at Robert Morris University. As Clint mentioned, I worked closely with the Kips Ice Cream Group, and our project was focused on a lot of areas of my area, and one specific instance, change. I'll talk about how originally after my research, I realized that my idea for the business was something that was problematic, and that I was forced to rethink and reanalyze my plans for the business. Now, my original intent was to refurbish and modernize the location of the business, focusing mainly on interior design. The two big aspects that I wanted to focus on were implementing seating and revamping their outdoor focus. At Kips Ice Cream, there was no seating of any kind. I really thought that was something unusual for a business, so I looked into it and I discovered that as the business being part of a strip mall, their lease is not allowed for seating and it would violate building regulations. Now, for the outdoor focus, the location has several large glass windows, so I thought that was something they could utilize by improving their advertising and really getting their name and their logo out to the local community. So I wanted to improve signage in the storefront windows, and I wanted to improve their in-store advertising on the windows and in the location surrounding, which is where the idea for my new plan came up, which I will talk about shortly. Now, the reasons for switching, the two main reasons were that it would have been expensive and I am lacking expertise in the area of interior design. Remodeling would have been costly. I had several other ideas besides just improving seating and the signage, and the owner would have had to temporarily close her year-round location. Now, in the area of lacking expertise, all my ideas for my plan would have been based solely off of opinion, and it would have taken away from the research, which was really the main part of the project, was to incorporate research and then to execute and bring about a new foundation for the business. Now, as I mentioned, my new focus was to improve advertising. One thing I really wanted to do was to expand her customer base and to bring in new customers, the whole purpose of advertising. Now, what I want to do by that is I wanted to make some flyers, which I will show. This is an example of one of the ones I made. It is very simplistic in design, but I thought that was beneficial for many of her incoming customers, as many wanted something that was more simple as opposed to something that was overbearing and was very off-putting. So my first flyer was aimed at a general audience. The purpose of it was to reach out to the local community and bring in new customers who were either attending other local ice cream eateries or did not know of her location. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to make a flyer and have her distribute them in the surrounding area. The second flyer that I made was aimed towards nursing homes. I thought that as her business focusing on her catering service, she has a small maneuverable ice cream cart that is really easy to transport. So I thought that if she could use that and incorporate it into nursing homes, that it was something that could keep seniors actively involved, and it was something that they would really enjoy. Her ice cream is homemade, which is something that really sets her apart from the local ice cream eateries, and we all know that seniors love homemade and quality products. Now finally, as you can see here, this was the flyer that I made intended for businesses. There are a lot of local businesses, not only in the Moon area, but in the surrounding Pittsburgh area, that could incorporate her catering service. I thought that it would be a good idea, as you can see here, for sales meetings, business parties, as it's something that keeps members of the business very actively involved and engaged. And the reasons for my new focus were that it's something that's simple, quick, and effective. Making flyers was not necessarily difficult on my part, but it was something that involved a lot of research and something that I could implement. And in terms of difficulty for her, all she would have to do was to upload the flyers onto either Staples or FedEx.com, and she could have them printed in store the next day, and she could pick them up and distribute them the next day. Also, it was something that I thought was really effective in the sense that flyers are really good to give to your customers, to give a physical representation of a business. A lot of people like to know what they're getting into before they go to a business, and a flyer is something that really gives them an example of what they're getting into and what sort of products they offer. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Anna, who will discuss how she worked with the Robert Morris Department of English.
Hi. Is it okay if
Sure.
I know it's unconventional.
We have prime seating, so we can.
So my name is Anna Hartwell. I'm a finance and economics freshman student here at Robert Morris University. And as Paul Brendan Schink mentioned, I'm going to be discussing our work with the English department. English is a growing field at Robert Morris University. Robert Morris is primarily known for its business school, but in the past few years especially, Robert Morris has been expanding all of its programs, especially the English and communications departments. So the question became for us, how can we improve this department, and in what different aspects? So how do you improve a department at a university? Well, universities are constantly in competition. And in respect to the English field, universities are trying to attract students with good programs, individual attention in small classroom settings, a plethora of professors, not only with PhDs, but also in full-time positions, and a variety of classes for a number of majors in the specific field of choice. And of course, general activities in which to participate in regards to the students' passions, which in this case is English. Thus, to match the drive and willingness of the student that's prospectively coming to Robert Morris University, the department must also provide the means for which to advance the student's knowledge and develop them as individual persons. As the students seek to progress, the department must as well. This proposal, which conducted a lot of market research, compares 13 similar universities to Robert Morris in regard to their English departments, as well as their staff and resources, offered courses and majors, writing centers, and social media, which was my specific niche. So I'm going to explain this a little bit. Here are the 13 schools on the left. And first of all, we had to see if they had social media. So we checked to see if they had a web page, and the only one that didn't was West Liberty, and then Facebook page, and then Twitter page, which Twitter was pretty rare. So Facebook became our primary focus because web pages are standard, and Twitter was not that common. So we took a look at the Facebook likes, and obviously the schools are different in size, but overall we just wanted to see how the students interact with the schools on social media. Thus, we compared the likes, and Duquesne ended up having most likes. It's a particularly large school. And this was the frequency at which these universities posted. Obviously, if you have social media, it doesn't mean anything unless you post. So, Grove City, Duquesne, Bryant were the most frequent. So this is Robert Morris's social media and website, the Facebook page, and obviously the website. You can see that it's kind of poorly mapped out. And the English department's Facebook page is pretty bland as well. And these were Duquesne sites. It's obviously a lot more organized, vibrant, shows a lot more. And they were talking about the events that were going on campus, which is so important because you want to interact with your students as a department. So, the schools were first chosen based on department request. Dr. Sylvia Pambukian, who's the head of the English department, said, I want these schools. And then we decided we wanted to expand that research and include schools with similar accreditation, location, and enrollment. Our goals in doing this project were to provide Robert Morris University English Department with helpful, accurate, and new information regarding innovative ways to develop the department. The report was shown to Dr. Sylvia Pambukian, as I mentioned, the head of the English department, and we attempted to give her helpful information and insight in improving the department. So after conducting all this research, wow, I can't talk, and presenting this project to her, I have a few reflections that I'd like to give about the project as a whole. I'm going to be honest, we had a lot of problems. It was a group of four of us. And it was very research intensive in that we had to, it wasn't a whole lot of going out, it was more like sit down, look at the websites, analyze the social media, see what's going on. And so because of that, we had a lot of issues with technology. We worked on a Google Doc, and obviously that's not very compatible with all computers, and we had some trouble with people being able to do things at the appropriate times, and obviously we're trying to do something in a successive order. And we had kind of a false start, I guess you could say, but we did recover from that, and we ended up doing a pretty good job on the project. And I guess the main question would be, was the project worth my time and effort? Did I do something that was helpful for the English department? And I would say a very affirmative yes. As I became more involved and interested, I wanted to do so much for this school and do the best on the project as I could. It was what I wanted. It became less of a task and more of something I enjoyed. Obviously, it's still a project, but I did enjoy doing it. It took a lot of time and an equal amount of effort, and it was a little bit exhausting, but seeing our research put to good use and being able to present it to the English department was extremely rewarding. In researching, I learned there are many different ways to conduct research. Stereotypically, you use RMU's library database and you find, professional peer-reviewed sources. But we used the internet. I know, blasphemy. But we analyzed the social media, did quantitative analysis, and that was so different to me. It wasn't something I was really exposed to. Additionally, I learned how to communicate within a group. I personally hate group projects, but this worked out fine. We all had our research report, as I mentioned, on the Google Doc, and as I mentioned before, the technology didn't always cooperate. We had our struggles as a group trying to find time to do stuff together. But our focus was not on the personality of the individuals. It was not on, I don't really know how to explain it. It was not on doing the work, it was getting the work done. It's like the essence of the team. I don't know if you guys played sports or worked on projects together, but as long as you accomplish the goal you set out to do, then that's all that really matters. And overall, we pulled together, perhaps mostly the night before, but we generated a solid, pithy, and informative report. And in generating our report, we had to consider our general audience, which was the staff behind the English department, as well as the English department head, and her higher-ups. Our face-to-face interaction mocked a boss-employee proposal, as well as an interview-like setting, which will obviously be applicable for years to come. If I had to do anything differently, obviously I would procrastinate a little less. But overall, I think our effort and our hearts were there, and we did a solid job on the report. And now I will turn the program over to Clint, who will offer his reflections on his report for Cliff's High School.
Thank you, Anna. In conclusion, what I've learned from all this research that I conducted for Kip's Ice Cream is that Kip's can dominate the winter sales in this area by targeting the collegiate market. I learned that there are two main competitors that stay open through the winter months, Sincerely Yogurt and Swiftly Confectionery. However, they close their doors at 9 p.m. Sincerely Yogurt does not sell their frozen product by the pint or quart, which is how the RMU students bought the Ben & Jerry's ice cream at Romo's. This gives Kip's the advantage for attracting the college market, and Swiftly Confectionery cannot compete with the proximity of Kip's to RMU. KIPP should in theory then have a monopoly of off-campus frozen goods sales during the winter months. This is a lot of information, so as a group, between Paul and I and our 2 other team members, we summarized it into one call to action, which is get on social media in order to reach the college market and perhaps stay open later for college students that are looking for a late night treat during the winter. In conclusion, if I could go back and do this project again, I would change a few things. I'd perhaps sit outside of Romo's on multiple different nights instead of just one to gather stronger data. And I would also try to refine my task earlier on in the project. The project itself was very valuable, and I learned a lot of life-applicable lessons. It made me realize that college is not a joke, and that I will be learning things here at Robert Morris University that,
Sorry. Oh, geez. I missed the elections part. Sorry.
made me realize that even as a first semester freshman here at Robert Morris University, we can still learn lessons and apply to the real world. I also learned that teamwork, which was a crucial part to this project, is very important, especially when everyone's working on different parts of the project. But in the end, you need to have it all come together and gel for one cohesive report for someone. And I also learned that you need to put in the work in order to be respected and have your ideas be listened to. And this project really defined what establishing ethos is for me. And now I'll pass it off to Paul for his reflections on our project.
Thank you, Clint. So for my reflections, I'd like to focus mainly on the challenges of the project. The first and I thought the most important challenge was the fact that I was switching from a classroom setting to a business setting. With many projects in college, your goal is to, put it lightly, cater to what the professor wants. But in terms of this project, it was looking at really what we thought what the best idea was for the business and how to best implement the ways of going about and implementing our ideas. So something that was unique about that was that our project really had real world implications. Not only were we just turning in a report where we looked up facts and put it into an essay form, but we did our research. We conducted what's it like in the business world and how can we update and improve her way of doing it and make it so that her business was more successful. Now another challenge, of course, was coordination. Everyone knows that group projects are extremely stressful. One thing that was really specific towards ours was that we all had different schedules for our classes. Many of us found that it was difficult to meet at the same time to get our work done, especially considering that one of the members of our group was a commuter. So we ended up having to do a lot of work over Thanksgiving break, which, given the fact that we were all at home and none of us lived in proximity to one another, made the work extremely difficult and extremely stressful on all of us. In my personal opinion, the work seemed to be nearly endless. Our final report, when we turned it in, was well over 40 pages. So it was very lengthy, and I thought that this class especially was a lot more work than most of my classes, and that was including calculus and chemistry last semester. So the workload was extremely lengthy, but overall, I was really glad to do this project. It was something that was really different than a lot of projects that a lot of English professors offer. Instead of just writing an essay, it was something that was really interactive and had real world implications. And honestly, if I could do it again, I would do it again. And in my opinion, it was my personal favorite project that I've completed in college so far, and I think it'll be one of my favorite in the years to come. So with that, I would like to hand it off to Daniel.
So for one of the things I liked about this project was it was very practical. It wasn't what do you think about a given topic and find articles to support that. It was find out what's actually going on, compile a list, be useful, and so it's a different type of research, and it's research more in the original sense instead of looking at what other people have said and either analyzing it or responding to it. That was one of the things I liked. Also, doing this project, we mentioned before, it's in high school, one person's always carrying the group, and since we're usually the people doing it. But when you're in a group with other people where they're all those types of people, you just learn to trust people to say, all right, we each have a different thing that we need to get done, and then you show up with your thing and the other people actually have their stuff. And it's like, really? That's amazing. So that was one of the since this was like the first group project I did, it was cool to see. And then another thing was, we saw things wrong with the business that the client didn't necessarily see. Like the website, they still haven't changed their website, even though it looks like an order form. So like, it's not flashy. It's just there. So like that was something we wanted to see, but they didn't necessarily see it that way because they were the ones who created the website. They were the ones who. So our desires versus their desires was something we had kind of had to come to terms with, that they wouldn't accept everything that we had that we thought would be an improvement to their business. So now I'll hand it over to Jess.
So when I initially heard of this project, I was both scared and excited. I knew that it was going to be a project that would challenge me and force me to go beyond what I thought I was capable of. Over the course of those few weeks, I pushed myself to get the work done and to work with my team effectively. Everybody in the group had their own ideas about what they wanted for the project, and this caused a lot of tension during my first ever semester at college. I think by the time we had finished the draft, we had about 7 drafts of the paper that we had turned in. So when we finally finished the paper and turned it in, I walked out of that client meeting and I heard the positive remarks that Pat and Irene Trello had to say about the research that we had done, and I had felt that I had made a difference in what they had thought their business was, their hopes for their business and their goals for their business. I am more confident in my ability to do research for a large company, and I know that in the future I would be not only willing to do more client work, but that I can do the client work. During John F. Kennedy's famous speech about putting a man on the moon, he famously said that we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because the goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because the challenge is one that we are willing to accept. I believe that's why this project is important. This project was not easy, and we did not do busy work. We did this project because it was hard and because it pulled from within us our abilities and allowed us to do something bigger than ourselves and something bigger than the busy work that is often seen in college classes. I know this project at face value may not seem like a big project, but I wouldn't change a thing about that semester. Thank you. Oh, I would now like to turn it over to Dr. Malcolm for some closing remarks.
Okay, thanks. So I also understand. So I think my reflections on this whole process, not only for the fall semester but also in previous semesters, are that what these types of client projects can provide, whether they be small businesses or whether they be with departments at the university, but what they allow students to do is to have a safe space to practice practical skills. And in this case, with the Honors Argument and Research class, they were able to practice research skills in a safe space. So it wasn't that the very first draft was the final grade for their project, as you heard Jess talk about. As long as they were willing to continue to try to improve their skill sets and improve the way that they organized the project, in whatever aspect, each group had their own personality, then I was willing to continue to work with them until the end of the semester when we had those client meetings, and that was the deadline we had to live by. So we had a lot of wiggle room for those practice sessions, and the students rose to the occasion. And as is typical, I should say, I think they would like to think their experiences are somewhat unique, but having done this for 3 or 4 years now, what happens is at the beginning of the semester, if you have an enthusiastic, adventuresome group of students, they're very excited by the idea that they're going to do real work. Okay? And then I warned them at the very beginning, you'll be really excited, and then not so much. And then you'll probably dislike the project, you might not like me, you might think I'm too hard, and then you'll come back out of that when you meet the client, provide your product, and you yourself walk away with a product that you can show to a prospective employer, it usually gets a little better then. So having had the 1 semester to reflect, you hear generally positive comments. And if this was 6 months ago, you wouldn't really want to hear, nor would I want you to hear everything that they had to say about the clients, myself, the project, the class, etc. So, but this group did a really exceptional job, and that has been my experience actually, that the students, through a lot of effort, can really produce very high quality work that is very applicable in the real world. And my tendency is, as an applied person, so I just leave you with this quote from Goethe, that knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. And that was the purpose for clients in the classroom. So we have a few minutes left, I think, maybe 5-10 minutes. If anybody has any questions for the panelists or myself, we'll open it up.
Anna, you mentioned a false start. Could you elaborate more on that? Like, talk more about that?
I'm extremely limited on what I can say due to client confidentiality, but yeah, we ended up utilizing the time to discuss what we were going to do with the project. Obviously, we didn't have the information on how to start, but we kind of threw around some ideas.
Yeah, they had, and actually all of the students really have to agree to be very careful in what they reveal about the clients. That's a part of every project. In fact, this semester with the clients, they turned in actual confidentiality agreements to the client because the client was exploring a new business, trying to put together a new business plan, new business model, and they really, they were presenting this. 2 meetings occur. Just about 2 meetings occur. The students go on site to the client to get a feel for what these businesses look like. And then at the end of the semester, even though all of the information that students are revealing are protected under confidentiality agreements, these particular clients have agreed to let us share that basic information. Not all clients agree to do so. The students or the clients come into the classroom so that not only is the second meeting with the group of consultants that they've met before, but it's presented in front of the entire argument and research class so that everyone can learn from everybody else's project and they can all see the fruits of their labor. And so in any event, in terms of the particular case that Anna described, due to no fault of the students, but it was a situation with the client that the client, we literally were dressed and ready to go into that first meeting. The students had prepared extensively and the client was unable to attend. And so we did use that time then to prepare and review the interview questions, review everything in a little bit more detail than we had done previously. Any other questions? Go ahead, Julia. Oh, okay, good, Terry.
I was just wondering if your clients implemented any of your suggestions. I'm asking all of you.
I have a list that we made that they're using that for mailing lists and phone calls. I think you're using that.
Yeah, I probably have more knowledge just because I was the point of contact with the clients. So all of the materials were well received. In the case of Trello and the Embers, Trello is continuing to work with us on another business venture. So the materials that Dan specifically prepared in terms of looking at prospective businesses that might be interested in different products, those specific lists and identity profiles of different businesses, that information is being used by that same company that worked with Trello and Embers. In terms of the Department of English, I know that some of the materials that were provided were shared with other people within the department and elsewhere in the university. So to the extent that we wouldn't have expected massive changes in a quick way, but I know that that information has been used as well. In terms of Kip's ice cream, she is trying to prepare because these businesses were all, the business, with the exception of the academic department, the businesses are all small businesses, so they really are the owner and a few high school or college kids who work there. So the owner has taken the material in terms of the summer marketing for the little cart, et cetera, and she's approached different markets to try to implement some of the things that were suggested. I don't know if she's talked with, in terms of supplying students in the winter through Romo's, she also, that was another channel that Kip's Ice Cream was given, that she could hopefully get her pints of ice cream in the store right here at Robert Morris, so that was just another, I don't know if she, that part I don't know if she.
Faculty of Bibles too. Cater that
Julia, did you have a question too?
in. Do we have time? I think we're,
We have 3 minutes, so
okay, I'll give it.
give it your best
I'll give
shot.
my one-liner here. Yeah, full disclosure, 3 of these wonderful young students are in my class presently, communication skills. So I just wanted to comment on what you all did with audience. I don't know if you consciously talked about audience, and Dr. Malcolm shaking your head that you dealt with multiple, you had your instructor as your audience, that you had, oh my gosh, am I going to do this right? Again, a good grade. You had your business owners or department head as a client, and then the clients filter, what about the ice cream eaters? And you know, you had multiple audiences that were shifting down. So I just wanted to compliment you on how you managed that. Oh, we did that. But you did. You worked with that rhetorical triangle. I even heard, I think it was you talking about ethos. Yes. So we learned that terminology in the communication skills classes, and I was well impressed with how you juggled that through this project. So that's my input.
All right, thank you all very much for coming. Appreciate your attention.